If you would have told my younger self that I would one day become a somewhat avid novel reader, I simply wouldn't have believed you and probably thought that you were crazy. But look where we are now. When I was young, I never really enjoyed reading. Doesn't matter what topic or niche. I deemed everything as boring and even used to skip over large texts or conversations in video games. You could not get me to read a single sentence over the bare minimum of required information. But now, as I've grown older, I genuinely enjoy reading. Compared to the fast, endless floods of information and stimulation through social media and platforms like TikTok or YouTube, reading is a very pleasant alternative for entertainment. Our brains are not made for processing such a tremendous amount of information that we constantly see or watch on a daily basis on YouTube, or especially short form content on TikTok or Instagram Reels. It overloads our brain capacity and has all sorts of negative consequences, but this video is not going to be focusing on the long-term effects that excessive media consumption causes. I rather want to speak about why I kind of fell in love with reading and why you should too, hopefully. The great thing about reading compared to consuming media is that we take in and process the information at our own pace instead of unconsciously sitting in front of a screen and watch all sorts of content without giving it much of a thought. While reading, we deliberately focus on every single word in the sentence, and our brain has to make sense of what we just read. If we don't understand what we have read, we simply read the sentence again and again until it makes sense. Of course, when we are watching a YouTube video, we could also just skip back a few seconds, but come on, man, who does that? The book that really got me into reading novels is George Orwell's 1984. I'm sure you've heard of it or maybe even read it already. And despite being published in the year 1949, it captures today's zeitgeist and the way society is moving quite well. It really feels like Orwell had some sort of prophetic gift that allowed him to see into the future. Of course, we are still distant from the dystopian future he described, but the tendency and the way we are moving is already there. In case you haven't heard of the novel yet, basically the story, as I've said, takes place in a dystopian future where the government rules in total control over its people. Basically full-on totalitarianism. The citizens have zero privacy and are even spied on inside their own four walls, 24/7. The government rules through misery and distrust. All forms of relationships with other people, whether romantic or platonic, are basically non-existent. Even the children inside their families are getting brainwashed into total loyalty towards the government, or more like the Big Brother. In case you didn't know, this novel is where the phrase Big Brother is always watching you originates from. I didn't know it. But I don't want to tell too much of the story. It's a great novel and you should definitely read it if you haven't yet. Because, as I've said, it really does fit into today's time quite well. Especially right now where Ursula von der Leyen decided to implement messenger chat controls of EU citizens, or when Keir Starmer, before his resignation, wanted to ban social media for underage children and teens to, quote, protect them. But when it comes to protecting them from grape gangs, I can't say the R word here, he suddenly doesn't care. Man, why are politicians such hypocrites? It doesn't matter. I digress. So yeah, brother, definitely give the novel a try. Some other recommendation I have is Aldous Huxley's, I hope I pronounce his name right, his Brave New World novel. It is, in one way, quite similar towards Orwell's 1984 in the aspect of a dystopian future unfolding under the rule of totalitarianism, but the government's approach on how to exert dominance over the citizens really differs from the way of the Big Brother. In Brave New World, instead of being controlled by constant monitoring and misery, the people already before birth are programmed into constant gluttonous indulgence in all sorts of pleasure and consumerism, always seeking the path of the least resistance, despising delayed gratification, and being accustomed to receive basically everything instantly. So that way, the people won't revolt against the government because there simply is no need to revolt. They are always happy, in quotations. The government deliberately causes the gap between desire and satisfaction to be as small as possible, because it is inside this gap where we humans tend to be influenced by our negative emotions. They even created a legal drug called Soma, which gets handed out to the citizens after their work shift. It is also called vacation, because once it is ingested, the brain is in a trance-like state and constantly pours out dopamine, so the people surely won't experience any form of suffering and distress. It's a great novel. I feel like we are moving towards a future where kind of both elements of government will play a huge role in what's to come. You know, on one side, we will have total control and basically zero privacy. And on the other side, endless stimulation and consumption to keep people constantly distracted and also satisfied. So they won't feel the need or desire to start a rebellion. The Soma from Huxley's Brave New World basically exists in our reality already as TikTok or Instagram Reels. And I am more than positive that this is just the beginning. But let us not get too deep into this, that's also for another day. I can also definitely recommend George Orwell's Animal Farm. It is in some way the predecessor to 1984, even though they are two completely different settings. Reading Animal Farm kind of feels like reading what happened before the totalitarian government took control in his 1984. If you get what I mean, I can't really find the words to describe it. And right now, I began reading Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, and I'm very excited to see how the story unfolds. It's already at the start very exciting to read. Before that, I read his other novel called Crime and Punishment, which I also really enjoyed. I definitely recommend both of them. So yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe for more content, and definitely let me know some of your recommendations. Apart from that, it's your boy Nomu. Take care and don't go hollow, my friend.